Having subscribed to the adoption of the United Nations Universal Call to Action to ending poverty, protect the planet, and ensure peace and prosperity for all, as enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals, and commenced implementation in Nigeria since January 2016. The President Muhammadu Buhari-led federal government has continued to embark on concrete steps towards the actualization of SDGs in the country, while building strongly on the principle of leaving no one behind. Environment, which is fundamental to the SDGs, has also remained one of the core pillars of the change agenda of President Buhari's administration. This is reflective of the government's new understanding of the environment as a new basis for sustainability and an entry point for addressing issues of security, inclusive and green economy, and improved governance through accountability and transparency. It was in line with government's commitment to providing the attaining environmental sustainability that the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals recently organized an intersectoral meeting on strengthening stakeholders' engagement on the environmental dimension of the SDGs in Nigeria. The meeting was aimed at exploring new ways of accelerating coordinated action on the 17 SDGs towards increasing the effectiveness and potency of action by targeting multiple SDG tracking of progress and reporting on the goals, as well as promote synergies amongst state and non-state actors. Speaking at the event, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, Princess Adejoke Orilokpe Adefulire, who was ably represented by the Secretary of Programs OSSAP-SDGs, Engineer Ahmed Kawu, said the need to actualize a sustainable environment calls for concerted action and collaborations in the remaining 10 years projected for the implementation of the global goals, as the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs has continued to strengthen frameworks for effective actualization of the goals in Nigeria.
This intersectoral meeting is hosted to continue the engagement of stakeholders with a view to accelerate the implementation of SDGs as we began the journey of the last 10 years of active implementation of this program. Evidently, the OSSAP-SDGs has set up processes and frameworks to position Nigeria in a very proper footings to integrate and mainstream the SDGs in synergy and strategic partnership with all relevant stakeholders across the country.
The SSAP also reiterated the need for conscious integration of the SDGs into national and sub-national plans and policies, as the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be actualized in standalone policies. The presidential aide noted that the unprecedented setback caused by COVID-19 pandemic and global development also affected the acceleration of the SDGs implementation in Nigeria. She therefore encouraged the reinforcement of stakeholders' commitment through action for the actualization of the SDGs in Nigeria. In his presentation, Dr. Bala Yunusa provided technical details of framework developed by the SDGs Office for an effective and efficient implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. These include the sustainable financing, strategic policies, and data bond application designed to strengthen the commitment of policymakers, development practitioners, and private investors in the implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria.
The Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs does not attempt to implement the SDGs, but rather to coordinate the implementation of the SDGs through the relevant federal ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as the subnational governments. So our strategic approach can be seen at two different levels. at the national and at the subnational level. At the national level, we work with the federal ministries, departments, and agencies, if you like, to integrate the SDGs into their sectoral policies and plans. For example, about 5 and arguably 6 of the 17 SDGs fall within the mandate of the Federal Ministry of Environment and its relevant department and agencies. So it is for us to ensure that those goals are actually integrated and mainstreamed into the sectoral policies and plans of the Federal Ministry Department and of the Federal Ministry of Environment and its relevant agencies to ensure that we integrate the SDGs into our sectoral policies and plans. And when we do that, we're not only doing coordination, but we are then asking the Federal Ministries, Department, and agencies to use their traditional budgetary sources to fund, if you like, finance the implementation of the SDGs.
Application of space science and technology has been identified as necessary for effective implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria. This was made known at the event in the presentation by Dr. Matthew Adekboju of the National Space Research and Development Agency. He disclosed that the space science and technology, among many other benefits, can be deployed to predict and manage disaster situations, improve on agricultural output, and to provide and make education accessible to remote and isolated areas.
The benefits of space science and technology for sustainable development goal number 1 is no poverty. What are the things that comes with poverty? It's not about only food, it's not about only clothing, but if you live in a slum, then it's an indicator that you're in poverty. And if you live in a flood-blown area all the time, because when flood comes the first time, the second time, the wealthy people relocate. It's only the poor people that get stuck into that particular location. And from the space, we can actually map all these indicators and do a great job with it. On the zero hunger, there are a lot of work we've done in improving the agricultural production in Nigeria. We just introduced a new program which is going through the presidential team on food sustainability. It's called Crop Wash, and it's a multi-sectorial approach. NIMET and so many Ministry of Agriculture are part of the program, and this is looking at what we have from the space. Many people would like to ask the question, we are talking about basic necessity of life, which Nigeria has not attained, and these guys said they are going to space. But it will be interesting to note that there's no problem that you can solve effectively on planet Earth without advanced and cutting-edge technology. That's the only way we can fast-track and leapfrog the nation's development. Of course, there's no effective solution to health challenges without using space technology. Now, COVID is the issue that everybody is battling with. The effective tools to manage COVID is by knowing the actual location and the prevalence of the COVID. If you don't know where it is and who have contacted it, it will be difficult to actually control and manage it. And therefore, geospatial tracking system is being deployed to effectively handle this aspect. The goal number 4, quality education. We've carried out a lot of projects that has to do directly with the educational sector. We partner with UBEC to actually map all the primary schools in the country and junior secondary school in the country. That's the work we did about 3 years ago, and it's It's a claim that that's the first time that educational sector will have the evidence-based information in the country. So these are some of the things that space technology is able to achieve for us.
While speaking on the importance of data bound to the successful implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria, the Statistician General of the National Bureau of Statistics, Simon B. Hari, represented by Mrs. Anne Ibrahim, reiterated the need to have accurate data for effective mappings on SDGs progress and to identify new areas that requires attention in policy direction. She, however, emphasized the need for accuracy in data gathering while highlighting ways of improving data availability, how accurate data is measured, and the need to embrace the culture of evidence-based planning for national development.
So the main thing I want to ask is, how do we improve this data availability? It's important that we have intensive stakeholders consultations like this. This forum needs to be upscaled. We need to have advocacy. There needs to be a sector consultative committee on environment, where people sit down as environment, statistics producers of statistics, sit down and interact and find ways of addressing simple things. The data mapping that Dr. Bala had earlier said, before we did the baseline, we did a mapping. There was serious consultation with different NDAs. Everybody said, before we concluded on that activity, everybody took ownership and said, we are responsible. NDAA might provide some of this, but we will take and provide X, Y, Z to you. If you do not have the data dictionary, it's important that before you leave this forum or submit it to Secretariat to share with you, so that you know specifically as an agency what you're supposed to be providing data for, and focus on that as regards SDGs.
As the federal government continues to intensify efforts towards accelerating the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria with a strong commitment to leaving no one behind, substantial data has been identified as one major tool needed to ensure a more coordinated and robust inclusivity in the implementation of the SDGs for the benefit of all Nigerians. It is against this background that the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals is partnering Sightsavers Nigeria and the National Bureau of Statistics in taking strategic steps that will culminate in Nigerian government signing up to the Inclusive Data Charter, which was developed by the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, GPSDD, to mobilize political commitment and meaningful actions for inclusiveness from comprehensive data. At a strategic session held recently by the Technical Working Committee, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orilokbe Adefulire, who was represented by the Secretary of Programs OSSAP-SDGs, Engineer Ahmed Kawu, stated that the move focused on inclusive data provision became necessary considering that relevant data of the poor and vulnerable must be fully captured in the national database for governments to meet its commitment of leaving no one behind. She added that this will help to strengthen the decision-making process and policies of government towards the attainment of the SDGs in Nigeria.
The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals commits leaving no one behind. However, in order to fulfill this pledge, we need relevant data to understand the needs and experiences of marginalized people in the society. Hence, the need for Nigeria to key into the initiatives called Inclusive Data Charter, IDC, initiatives with the aim of ensuring poor and vulnerable people are fully captured in our data in line with the SDGs principle of leave no one behind.
In his presentation on the operational framework, key performance indicators and relevant structures within the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria, Dr. Zakaria Mohammed shared more lights.
The issue of data is very key. That's why we're also here. The data is very important, and these are some of the issues that emanated at the end of the MDGs. Very difficult to measure the progress that has been made because the data was not available. The baseline data was not available, and also at the end of the day, we had issue of data. So the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President, just about 1 year of its establishment, has made effort to develop the data, map all the SDGs, 17 goals, 169 targets, and then 230 indicators, in collaboration with the National Bureau of Statistics and the UNDP, to develop the SDG indicator baseline report. This will give us a kind of a baseline, which periodically will be able to see the progress we're making or otherwise, as far as SDG implementation is concerned. And then the baseline report provide a benchmark for you to make evidence-based decision and then also legislation. You need data. That is why we're also here to disaggregate the data and see to ensure that we have adequate, that everybody is included in the data that we're providing.
The country director of Site Savers, Dr. Isiaku Sunday, in his presentation, reiterated the need for a very inclusive and robust data that covers a wider range of variables and not just gender, as non-comprehensive data limits the support for target-specific developments. Dr. Isiaku Sunday added that the implication of not having adequate data of the marginalized in the society is that they are automatically omitted from decision-making processes. According to him, 20% of the poorest population in the world is estimated to be 55% of people whose birth registration data are not available.
Clearly, one of the things we've observed is that when we have no data for the marginalized, the reality is that they are out of the decision we make because we don't have their data. If marginalized groups, including persons with disabilities, are not part of our data collection, it then means when we are taking decisions or making those decisions, we are unable to actually add them to the decision we make. From the findings we have, 20% of the poorest of the world actually estimate to be the 55% of people whose birth registration data are not available.
While there are many technical and methodological challenges facing the improvement of data disaggregation, some of the major identified barriers are political and financial. Members of the Technical Working Group on the Inclusive Data Charter speak on the expected impact of the IDC towards the actualization of the SDGs in Nigeria.
The Inclusive Data Charter is basically an initiative of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, which is a global initiative to basically ensure that data that is being reported upon in the spirit and letters of the transformative promise of the 2030 agenda to leave no one behind. We want to make sure that data that are coming from national governments or that are being reported on the SDGs are inclusive and also desegregated by gender and the composition of the population as appropriate. Now, this initiative is of the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs in collaboration and partnership with the National Bureau of Statistics as well as Site Savers International Nigeria. What we are aiming to do is to ensure that Nigeria sign up to the Inclusive Data Charter and get the needed support from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development. And what that entails is that we should be able to know who are left behind in terms of development or socio-economic indices that relate to the 230 key performance indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals. If we are able to strengthen the national statistical system to be able to report not only the timely and credible data, but also that which is inclusive and also desegregated, then it will be able to inform policy formulation, identification of the people that are left behind, and also coming up with key policies and programs that will address the concerns of the persons with disability and also persons with concern broadly, or the vulnerable population as a whole. So that is basically the whole idea about this initiative, and we thought that we could start this by setting up a technical working committee that will facilitate the successful, if you like, admission of Nigeria into the Inclusive Data Charter, which is a global initiative. Once we have data that addresses the needs and concerns of the persons with disability and the vulnerable population broadly, then we are able to come up with targeted interventions that will address these specific needs. The starting point is to know their number, where do they live, and how to get across to them. And the next is just to be able to craft policies and programs from the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies to reach out to these poor, vulnerable, as well as, if you like, marginalized Nigerians. Obviously, this is at the heart of the desire of SDG 10, reducing inequalities both within and outside the geographical jurisdiction, within countries and among countries. So within countries, we want to ensure that those that are left behind are actually identified through a scientific means, and then also they are then retargeted and reached, in a manner that addresses the major concern of the vulnerable population. Therefore, once this process is on, and Nigeria is on it, we will benefit from capacity building from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development, and that will translate into our capacity or ability, if you like, to identify the poor and vulnerable population and reach them through targeted policies and programs.
This program is a nice one because it's going to help the PWD to be inclusive in data collections. And this is a welcome development for our commission because we are looking forward to this, where everybody will be carried along and we will feel safe, and the PW people will feel they will be accessible to every social infrastructures in the society.
Today we have had a very nice time. We, as members of the technical working group, we looked at the prospects of Nigeria signing on the Inclusive Data Charter, which will enable all the unincluded to be factored into our development programs in Nigeria. I am representing the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment on the committee, which is working very hard to ensure that Nigeria sign on the Inclusive Data Charter, which is an initiative meant to ensure that development planning is well actualized to factor the unincluded in the development programs of this country. So the mileage really is that we have a mandate to ensure that this happens before the end of the year, so that Nigeria will express our interest on the IDC initiative, like some other countries in Africa had already done. Kenya, Senegal, Cape Verde, and a host of other countries, including the UK, have signed on the IDC, Inclusive Data Charter. The Inclusive Data Charter means that there is a multi-sectoral involvement of all the stakeholders in fashioning out development programs that will be based on actual data that includes all the people who either were left out in the development planning programs. So I believe that this initiative is a welcome one, and All hands must be on deck to ensure the realization of these efforts being carried out by the SDG office in Nigeria.
Agenda 2030. As a successor framework for the Millennium Development Goals, the global community rolled out a bigger, deeper, and more encompassing framework called the Sustainable Development Goals, designed to transform our world, lift the poor out of poverty, as well as ensure inclusive and healthy society. On Agenda 2030, we take you on a media trip to the global destination of the future we want. With everyone on board, we focus on the people and their struggle, the civil society and their agitations, the government and her development effort, the global development agenda, its 17 goals and 169 targets. We bring you all the deliberations, insightful conversations and high-level partnerships on the road to global destination. Agenda 2030, showing on this channel. Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind.